Welcome back, everybody, to Day 7 of our 12 Days of Mortal Kombat Christmas. Today, we're going to be taking a look at Mortal Kombat Tournament Edition. This title is somewhat of a tie-in with the recently reviewed Deadly Alliance, of which was released on a variety of home consoles. The Gameboy Advance, however, was one of the portable platforms to also get a release. That said, as most of you can already imagine, the power of, say, a GameCube or an Xbox is vastly different than that of a Game Boy Advance. As a result, the experiences would be quite varied, though depending on your preferences, for better or worse. Tournament Edition was released on August 25th, 2003, almost a year after the initial release of Deadly Alliance. It is technically the second release of Deadly Alliance for the Game Boy Advance, and features a separate roster of characters compared to the first release. Its story is based exactly around that of the fifth game, with the alliance between Quan Chi and Shang Tsung in their attempts to raise the Dragon King's army. The biggest change to our roster compared to the console counterpart is that, of course, we're missing half of the characters in this version, and we also have 3 new fighters to choose from not seen on home consoles, those being Serena, Noob Saibot, and Sector. Now, combat in this game is a little lesser in quality, mainly because the Game Boy lacks a full 4 face button layout, but it is still rather familiar, even allowing you to switch between fighting styles. Instead of being able to manually switch your weapon in this version, you instead have to weave the weapon into your combos. I actually didn't mind this that much, because it's how it works in other entries I've enjoyed recently, like Mortal Kombat 9 and 10. The graphics are probably the biggest hindrance for me. I don't think the game made the best transfer it could have. Rather than trying to completely recreate the 3D environments, I felt they should have gone back and used the 2D fighting plane for the handheld. The models are pretty nice, and the animations themselves are actually pretty smooth, but the gameplay feels sluggish compared to Deadly Alliance, and I feel that may have had to do with the hardware trying to keep up with the 3D world. Fatalities, of course, can be found in even this version of the game. In fact, every character has 1 normal and 1 weapon fatality, a surprising addition compared to the singular fatality offered up by everyone in console editions. That said, you can tell that most of the normal fatalities were taken directly from the console editions, and with a bit of watering down. There is certainly blood, but much of the gore seen prior is not here. You don't see enemies exploding into giblets or anything of that humorous Mortal Kombat nature. Regarding your game modes, you can of course climb the classic ladder, take part in a survival match of which you see how long you can endure opponents, or try out Tag Team, which allows you to pit groups of 2 versus 2 against one another. Practice makes a well-appreciated return for those of you who want to try a hand at the newfound weapon combos, and if you happen to have a friend with a copy of the game, you can link up and fight in multiplayer. Surprisingly enough, there is actually a crypt in this game where you can spend the coins you earn. The vast majority of the troves hold costumes, though to be more accurate, they are just palette swaps. That goes without saying what odd swaps they can be. A majority of them just look like somebody played with the filter options in Photoshop, and not very well. Others are clearly negatives, and Shang Tsung has this? A lot of these swaps are either hit or miss depending on your preferences. I, as per usual, hit up the arcade ladder and found that it was pretty tame compared to the other games. There is no major sub-boss such as Moloch, unfortunately, and after taking down Quan Chi and Shang Tsung, you get a simple text and photo ending relating to your character. There is the occasional test your sight and test your might minigame to have a go at, and those are undeniably still a enjoyable break between fights. Short as it may be though, that wraps it up for this game. The amount of content is about as small as the cartridge it's packed into. I think by itself, this game could have been a lot worse, but if you're playing it as a tie-in experience after coming from the console versions of Deadly Alliance, then you may be able to get a few hours of enjoyment out of this game. Personally, I don't really care for it. I felt they should have gone 2.5D with this one just because of the Game Boy's limitations. For me, this game is a 6 out of 10.
Get over here!
It was cool trying out the weapon combos and fatalities that were unique to this game, but beyond that, there isn't anything here that wasn't done better in Deadly Alliance. If this was all you could get for the time, then yes, it could certainly do. But if you have the opportunity, try to get your hands on the console versions of Deadly Alliance, if that's what you want to play, or even opt for one of the games from the classic trilogy. Either way, you'll likely have an experience that leaves you with a better taste than this one will. And thus ends Day 7 of our 12 Days of Mortal Kombat Christmas. Much like my thoughts on Mythology Sub-Zero, this game isn't terrible, it's just average. I did, however, score it at least 1 point higher than that release because, at the very least, this game has an interesting roster for us to choose from and a variety of fatalities for us to experiment with. Just don't expect anything crazy with the limitations the Game Boy Advance faces. Thank you all very much for watching today. If you enjoyed what you saw here today, feel free to reflect that either through a like or a comment down below. If you'd like to see more content like this in the future, feel free to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can find out exactly when we go live again. As always, you guys, thank you so much for watching, and remember, stay safe, stay happy.